The courtroom was cold, too cold for a place where truth was supposed to live. Yet the chill that ran down Maria Dawson's spine had nothing to do with the air conditioning and everything to do with the way people were staring at her chest, at the medals she wore. They glimmered faintly under the fluorescent lights, the only bright thing in a room full of judgmental eyes. She stood alone at the defense table, a woman who had survived battlefields most people couldn't even imagine, yet somehow this wooden room with polished floors felt more hostile than any war zone she had ever stepped into. As she waited for the judge to enter, she tightened her trembling fingers together and silently prayed that she would not break. She had survived gunfire, explosions, and nightmares that still clawed through her sleep. But she wasn't sure she could survive this kind of humiliation. The door opened. Everyone rose. Judge Franklin Cooper walked in with the heavy, self-important steps of a man who had never served a single day in uniform yet wore arrogance like a badge. His eyes landed on her medals even before he reached his seat. The corners of his mouth lifted, not in admiration, but in mockery. Maria felt a familiar burn in her chest, the same feeling she had felt when her commanding officer had once told her she was too soft to last in combat, before she proved him wrong in ways that made history inside her unit. But here, none of that mattered. Here, she wasn't Captain Maria Dawson. She wasn't the medic who had carried wounded soldiers under sniper fire. She wasn't the woman who had earned a Silver Star for saving an entire squad under impossible conditions. Here, she was just a defendant. When the judge finally sat, he didn't waste time. His voice echoed sharply as he questioned the authenticity of the medals pinned to her chest. He said they were too many for someone like her. His tone wasn't subtle, it was dripping with accusation and disbelief. The courtroom murmured, people whispering, some snickering. Maria felt her heart sink deeper. She had come to testify in a case involving a veteran she was trying to protect, never expecting the judge himself to turn the spotlight on her. She wished she had left the medals at home, but her old commander had once told her, "Wear your truth, even when people doubt it." And she had believed in that. Until now. Her mind drifted to the dusty roads of Kandahar, where the sun felt like it wanted to burn the world down and every corner held the possibility of death. She remembered the weight of bandages soaked with blood, the echo of distant artillery, and the screams of soldiers whose names were now etched on memorial stones. She remembered how she had run back into a collapsing building because one of the boys she trained had cried out for help. She remembered dragging him out as the roof fell behind her, the heat scalding her skin. Those medals weren't decorations, they were ghosts, memories, scars. And yet, here she was being mocked for them. Judge Cooper leaned back in his chair, asking her to justify every ribbon, every honor. His words cut deeper than shrapnel ever had. Her voice shook as she explained her service, the missions, the commendations. But the judge waved her off, calling her statements too heroic to be believable. Maria felt her throat tighten. It wasn't just disbelief, it was an attack on the very parts of her life she had fought hardest to survive. Still, she stood firm, knowing she had nothing to lie about. But the damage was done. The courtroom didn't believe her. The judge didn't believe her. And the silence that followed felt like a verdict long before the trial even began. As the questioning continued, she felt herself slipping into memories she had long buried. She remembered the night her convoy was ambushed, the explosion that flipped their vehicle, the ringing in her ears as she crawled through dust and blood to pull her teammates to safety. She remembered the trembling hands of the young soldier who had cried, "Don't let me die," while she pressed her palms against his wound to keep him alive long enough for help to arrive. She remembered the military hospital where she spent months recovering, learning how to walk again after her left leg had been shattered. The medals on her chest weren't shiny tokens, they were stories written in pain and survival. Her attorney tried to defend her, but Judge Cooper interrupted sharply, once again implying that her medals looked suspiciously pristine. The insult stung. Maria lowered her eyes, blinking rapidly to hold back tears. It wasn't the judge's disbelief that hurt, it was the feeling that her sacrifices, her wounds, and the lives she had saved were being erased with a few careless words from a man who had never heard a bullet whistle past his ear. She felt small, stripped of dignity. But life has a way of turning in the moments we least expect. Just as Judge Cooper ordered Maria to remove her medals until they could be verified, the courtroom doors swung open again, not with the hesitant creak of a late observer, but with the bold authority of someone who owned every space he walked into. The room fell into stunned silence. A tall man in full uniform marched in, the stars on his shoulders glinting like cold fire. A 4-star general. His presence alone commanded respect so powerful that even the judge straightened in his chair. General Alan Bryson, known across the armed forces for his strict discipline and unwavering loyalty to his soldiers, walked past the rows of spectators, his eyes fixed on Maria with a look that made her breath hitch. He stopped in front of her, this woman who moments ago had been humiliated so deeply she thought she might collapse. The general raised his hand to his brow and delivered a crisp, unwavering salute. The sound echoed in her heart louder than any explosion she had survived. The courtroom gasped. Judge Cooper's face drained of color. Maria froze. The world blurred. She hadn't seen him in years, not since Afghanistan, where he had personally witnessed her courage on missions no one outside classified files would ever hear about. To have him here now, standing in her defense, was more than she could comprehend. Then the general spoke, not loudly, but with a gravity that made every ear in the courtroom lean closer. He explained that Maria Dawson was not only a decorated hero but one of the finest soldiers he had ever served with. He explained that her medals weren't fake, they were earned in circumstances so severe that even official reports failed to capture the true magnitude of her bravery. He spoke of the operations she had saved through her instincts, the lives she had rescued with her hands, and the strength she showed during missions that had turned seasoned fighters into ghosts of themselves. He revealed that one of the medals she wore had been pinned on her by him personally, after a night when she had dragged 2 soldiers through a firefight so fierce that many had believed no one would survive. As he spoke, Maria felt tears finally break free, sliding silently down her cheeks. Not because she wanted recognition, but because someone finally believed her. Someone finally saw her. Judge Cooper stuttered helplessly, trying to explain himself, but the general's cold stare silenced him. The judge had mocked a hero. And now the entire courtroom knew it. In that moment, everything changed. The prosecutor backed down. The spectators bowed their heads in shame. The judge apologized, weakly, nervously, realizing that his arrogance had nearly destroyed a woman who had risked her life for the very freedom he took for granted. The atmosphere shifted from humiliation to awe, and people who had doubted Maria moments earlier now looked at her with respect bordering on reverence. But the general didn't stop there. He told the court about the pain Maria carried silently, the nightmares, the scars, the guilt survivors often bore heavier than any medal. He spoke of her humility, how she had never taken credit even when she deserved it. By the time he finished, Maria wasn't just vindicated, she was honored in a way she had never expected. She stood taller, breathing deeply, letting the weight of years of shame and silence finally lift off her shoulders. The courtroom transformed from a place of humiliation to a place of healing. When the proceedings ended, Maria stepped out into the sunlight, feeling like she could breathe again. The general walked beside her, telling her she had inspired countless soldiers, including him. She looked at the medals on her chest, not with pride, but with acceptance. They weren't burdens anymore. They were chapters of her life, reminders of her strength, proof of her journey. And for the first time in a long, long while, she allowed herself to smile. If this story touched your heart, please consider supporting this channel so we can continue bringing powerful true inspired stories to life. Before you go, please comment, respect for real heroes.